Back in November 1988, the 25th anniversary. I'd like to know what went on in the newsroom when you heard the news that he was shot, and how did you get it on the air so fast?
Well, we went on the air immediately with the first bulletin from Dallas, Texas, which was carried by the United Press, my old alma mater. Merriman Smith got the first break on it, and we went on the air right away, but we couldn't go on camera because in those days we didn't have a camera hot, ready to go in the newsroom. I had to go on audio only. We interrupted a soap opera, and I went on with radio bulletins, that is voice-only bulletins, and then they got the camera up into the newsroom, got it hot, and I think we got on in about 8 or 10 minutes, something like that, and from that time on, we were on the air constantly. So at the moment that he died, we were in operation.
Did you hear the 5 bells ring in the newsroom? Is that the way it happened?
You know, as a matter of fact, Larry, I didn't realize this at the time. I read this only recently in a history of the moment. They said that they didn't ring any bells at UP when that happened. And I think that's probably right, because I don't remember that it was slug bulletin or anything. It just came across the wires coldly. Shots rang out in Dealey Plaza today as the president's motorcade passed.
Who spotted it?
Yeah.
You know, without the bells, who spotted it at the network? The bells used to be our cue to go running over to the machine.
Of course, and that's what they were for. You know, 5 bells for a bulletin, 12 bells for a flash, and all that code stuff. I was standing there.
Really?
I was standing there looking at the machine when it happened. And I was in the newsroom. It was lunchtime. I didn't go to lunch most of the time when I was doing the evening news. I stayed in and watched the wires and did that sort of thing. And I happened to be standing right there at the machine. And I was looking at it, and next thing I look at it, there's the story.
His own videos with the children and the videos that showed on CNN and other networks. Was that good journalism to show it?
Oh, I think you had to. Once it's available, it would be a mistake not to show it. We shouldn't try to play God, you know, in making decisions like that. If this sort of material is available, it should be shown to the American people. We should be able to make up our own minds. I hope we're not foolish enough to be misled by such propaganda as that, and it should be labeled properly, obviously, as to the source of it, where it came from, who sponsored it, how it got on the air. If all those things are done properly, then certainly we should see it.
Gorbachev wins the Nobel Peace Prize. Thought?
Probably deserved, and maybe it'll keep him alive a little bit longer in the Soviet Union, but probably not that much longer if their domestic affairs aren't improved commensurately.
Budget cutting at the networks, are you concerned?
The what again, Larry?
Budget cuts at all the network news departments.
I guess I try to close my ears to those words. Maybe that's why I didn't hear you. Yes, of course I'm concerned. I think it's very possible to cut far beyond the flesh and well into muscle and eventually into bone. I think that we've got to be very careful of that. I'm a little concerned today, quite honestly, that we have reduced the number of foreign bureaus. I'm not talking about CBS now. I'm talking about all the networks across the board, and some of the others are worse than we are in that particular regard, we at CBS. We need foreign correspondents. We need them in the capitals. And I think we're trying today to cover the world, we on all of television, out of a sort of a city desk operation in which we send our police reporters out on the fire from the city desk, which is in New York or London or some central location. Whereas actually these fires require a great deal of local knowledge, require a great deal of detailed knowledge about the sources of the news and whether they're reliable or not, how to get to the reliable sources in those places. I think a case could very possibly be made that if we had had strong foreign bureaus in the Middle East, and we don't have big bureaus there anywhere really today. If we'd had foreign correspondents of stature in Baghdad, for instance, we might have had advance warning of Saddam Hussein's intentions to the degree that we wouldn't even be in this mess we're in today. Maybe journalism could have saved it if we'd been doing our job.
San Francisco.
The New York Times, you know, Larry, the New York Times had stories about the buildup on the Kuwait border.
They did.
And we didn't pay any attention to it. You know, if we'd had foreign correspondents of our own over there who were putting our feet to the fire and saying, hey, wait a minute, get this on the air, this is critical, people in Washington who weren't reading the Times might have seen it on the air and said, hey, what about this State Department? What are we doing about it? Let's do something.
San Francisco for Walter Cronkite. Hello.
It's a pleasure to speak with you, Mr. Cronkite. It's been said that television coverage, and notably yours and CBS's, played a critical role in turning U.S. public opinion against the war in Vietnam and getting us out. But it can also be said that non-critical coverage at the beginning of the war helped get us in. Do you think that current coverage of the Gulf crisis is being critical enough of U.S. policy and their justification for the military buildup?
I'd say that was a very good question indeed, and the parallel is not at all badly taken. There is a question about that in my mind today. It's very tough to do, you know. You've got the news media itself can't, they can't make the news. I mean, really, we can do that in the editorial pages of the newspapers. In the rare case where we have commentary on television today, we can do it in the commentary. But you can't do it in the news area. You can't say, hey, this is wrong. Somebody's got to say it. Somebody's got to make some motions. Somebody make some moves that you can report on. And so far, we haven't seen that kind of buildup of public opinion. There's some of it. There's some ads appearing in the New York Times and elsewhere of organizations that are opposed to our being involved out there at all.
Well, discussion shows are doing it. We did it earlier tonight in the first portion of this program. Discussion shows are starting to do it. We are hearing people. Are you saying that news should be concentrating on it more? We should hear critics on the evening news?
Am I saying it, or is our caller saying it?
No, are you saying it?
Our caller's saying it, I gather. Well, I think that the evening news certainly has to be even-handed, fair in reporting if there is such a development coming, if there is an anti-involvement movement beginning, certainly we should be reporting it, quite obviously.
Our guest is Walter Cronkite. That's the way it is. The book is West Wind from Oxmoor Press. Brilliant drawings and, of course, the text of Mr. Cronkite. We'll be back with more calls on Larry King Live. Carl Bernstein, just back from Iraq, is here tomorrow night to tell us about it. South Carolina with the Dean of American Anchormen. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Mr. Cronkite, we really miss you. How do we solve the following dilemma? If a politician comes to the American people, tells them the truth, tells them the facts as they are, e.g. Walter Mondale, Jimmy Carter, he can't get elected. If he's a cheerleader, he has a good chance of getting elected. How do we beat that?
Probably take us about 2 generations to beat that, I think. We do it by education. You know, when we find ourselves suddenly criticizing the President of the United States for having to change his mind on read my lips and taxes, we oughtn't to blame him. We ought to blame ourselves for being foolish enough to have believed him in the first place. That's a major dilemma in our political lives. And I think that what it probably takes is for the crisis in our national life to grow to the degree that the American public finally say, well, I know that all those political promises haven't been true, but now I'm going to do something about it. And I think we may be reaching that stage now at this particular juncture in our national life, which has obviously reached a major crossroads.
Might it be a good bet to think that if this were 40 years ago, Walter Cronkite might have come to work at CNN?
Yeah.
Well, that would have been a place appealing to you, right?
There was a lot of discussion about it, to tell you the truth, Larry.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, you have CNN behind you now.
I wouldn't say there's a lot of discussion about it. There was a brief discussion about it.
Might you still come aboard?
Well, nobody's mentioned that for quite a while.
If somebody did,
I think I've probably got a terminal contract with CBS at this point. I've been with them 40 years. I don't really see much of a change coming.
New York City for Walter Cronkite. Hello. Although that background looks terrific. Hello.
Good evening,
Hi.
Larry, and good evening, Walter. First of all, Larry, I don't like your new opening music. To Walter, I really appreciate...
Wait to hear my opening music.
Walter, I really appreciate what you've done for me in helping me grow into being a critical thinker. And to follow up what the gentleman from Hilton Head, South Carolina said, I really think we need a lot more critical thinkers in our society today. I'm 28 years old, and a lot of the people in my age bracket don't think as critically about the world via the news as I do. But my question...
What's the question?
Excuse me?
What's the question?
Yes. Walter, I heard a couple of years back that you were hoping to be the first newsman in space. Are you still trying?
Well, not actively, because there isn't any opportunity for any journalist to try right now. They've closed the space program to civilians.
But you would have gone.
You're darn right I would have gone. If I was fighting for that opportunity, I would like to have been the first journalist in space. I'd still like to go. I mean, if there any opportunity, I'd take it in a minute. Although I must say that not quite as anxious I was before the Challenger accident, but at the same time, yes, I'd like to go. I think that even if I'd gone into on a shuttle flight, I'm still the guy who I guess always sees the glass half empty rather than half full. I would have then been unhappy that I wasn't going all the way to the moon. That's the flight I'd really like to make.
Now that's where we're different. Walter, you call me when you get there. We'll be back with our remaining moments with Walter Cronkite. The book is West Wind from Oxmoor Press, Ventura, California. Hello.
Yes, Mr. Cronkite, during the Tet Offensive, you made a statement on television, you know, that the United States was losing its war in Vietnam, and in hindsight, you know, the way the communists manipulated the news media, don't you think you were wrong in that statement?
We only have 30 seconds, Walter.
For one thing, I didn't say that. I said that we could not win the war in Vietnam. I didn't say we were losing it. There's a difference, because that was my very point. We were at a stalemate in Vietnam. And I said that I thought we ought to get out rather than continue to pursue it to no advantage.
Walter, do you miss anchoring?
Sure. I expected to, but I don't miss it any more than I expected to. Yeah.
Thanks for being with us. I look forward to reading this book as I have the other two, and thanks for joining us.
You bet. Glad to be with you, Larry.
Walter Cronkite, CBS.